So today in episode 72 of the Deep Dives, Destry, you have a little self-defense story that you want to share with us.
I do.
And then we're going to talk a little bit about what happens after Easter.
All right.
Deep Dive, episode 72.
So if you know me,
I do know you.
you do. Chris knows me. You know that I drone on about things that have happened to me. And they seem to happen to me, one of a couple things. They seem to happen to me a lot. I either put myself in the situation or I'm just more observant. And I don't think that's what it is, because I think things like this, what I'm about to talk about, it could happen to anybody.
Right.
So, first of all, what I've been listening to lately, Van Morrison. Donna and I love Van Morrison. This is something that I could put in the CD player in my Camaro, and she'd never say, I am so sick of Van Morrison. I don't want to hear Van Morrison anymore. We've seen him 3 times together. You know, it's one of those concerts where you can sit down and I have my arm around her and we just sit and we enjoy. Mm-hmm. It's like going to a movie.
Right.
And by the way, obviously a born-again Christian. And nowhere will you see that necessarily.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was the case.
Until you start listening to his music. Mm-hmm. And his music, some of them are, he talks about Christ on the cross and being sold out by a few more shackles. Mm-hmm. Shackles, is that right? A few more shekels. More shekels. And they divided up his robes. Who else is he talking about?
Right.
Right? And other songs. He just is, there's no question in my mind that he's a sold out Christian. And whenever we've seen him a couple times before he comes on stage, he has a saying up there, and it may have been a Bible verse, I don't remember, but it says something about they may not even know that they are hearing the gospel presented in such a way, something. And I read it, and we were kind of far back on the floor, and I read it, and it was up there just for a short period of time. And I looked at Donna, she didn't see it. So am I seeing things? I don't know, but it confirmed or just added to my thought that he's a born-again Christian. But anyway, so that's the music I've been listening to. Fantastic. If you haven't listened to Van Morrison, he has been producing music since around the Beatles' time. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's one of the most, if not the most prolific writer and musician. He plays saxophone, he plays guitar, he plays clarinet, anything that you can blow into or anything you can strum. He plays keyboard, harmonica. He's extraordinarily talented.
So I have a question.
All right.
So for the past several weeks, you've kind of been on this Metallica kick.
Mm-hmm.
Van Morrison's quite a bit different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What would you say has shifted your focus in that magnitude to go from one extreme to another extreme?
That's a good question. I went straight from Metallica, looked in my little console. Oh, yeah, I hadn't listened to that in a long time. Pulled it out and put Van Morrison in. Had something to do with the availability of CDs, but it also had to do with, after a while, I mean, I've been listening to Metallica for almost a month straight.
Yeah.
And I'm not tired of Metallica, but I want to change.
Uh-huh.
I listen to some Elton John also and some Van Morrison. Just changing. This is a typical scenario for me.
How has it affected your mood, if you've noticed anything?
Well, I certainly am more calm whenever I listen to I don't know, out of the car or whatever, I'm not sure. But things, I honestly don't know if it affects me out of the car while I'm not listening to music, if it affects me going into a situation, environment. I would bet that it does not really affect me very much. So if I'm listening to Metallica, I'm not going into a place where I'm taking cameras going, you better get right. You know what I mean? You better I want you to.
Does it make you more aggressive?
No. No, I don't think it does at all. I really don't think so.
Yeah.
Like I said, I kind of, you asked me the question, do I listen to music that reflects my current mood, or do I listen to music to change my mood? I listen to music that reflects my current mood.
So, see, that would tend to contradict what you just said, though, because if you're in an aggressive mood and you're listening to Metallica, that would tend to make me think that when you get out of the car, there's some level of aggression there that wouldn't have been otherwise.
Maybe I'm just not identifying it correctly. Aggression is, I don't even think I'm an aggressive, maybe how I handle conflict.
Yeah.
Maybe that would reflect. But honestly, I haven't done a self-analysis.
When you listen to Metallica and Van Morrison, are you more cognizant of the words since we've been analyzing all this stuff lately?
Yes, I am. Metallica, what I want to do with Metallica is write down what I think they're saying and then find out what they are saying. Right. And I guarantee you most of it's wrong. I guarantee most of it's wrong. Now, my at the time, up-to-date CD player, it prints out what the song is.
Yeah.
So more times than not, I'm looking at it going, oh, I didn't know that was the name of the song. But I've been singing it totally differently. You know what I mean? Like that's the lyric comes up and I sing something totally different that has the same amount of syllables and whatever. But,
so lately you said listening to Van Morrison, you've been more calm. So have
Did
you
I
just
say
been,
that? I said I've been more calm listening. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. What I mean is in the car, I'm not doing this.
Right.
I'm not playing air guitar or air anything, listening to Van Morrison. Yes.
So then it is.
Not yet, anyway.
So are you listening to Van Morrison because you're calm, or are you more calm because you're listening to Van Morrison?
The latter.
Okay. So then music is changing your mood.
Whenever I say that, what I mean is just while I'm driving.
Okay.
You
know of.
That I know of. That I know of.
Okay.
Right. And these two, anyway, there's some Van Morrison, you cannot. There's no way you can tell what he's saying. Mm-hmm. There's just no way. The older he gets, the more he slurs his speech and a lot like Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
But in both of these, and in most of the other Van Morrison that is recorded, you can pick it out really easy. You can pick out the song, or the lyrics. So I'm not even really singing the lyrics of Van Morrison unless it comes to Brown Eyed Girl or something like that. Yeah. Because his songs are more like poems than they are repetitive paragraphs.
Van Morrison's a lot easier to harmonize too.
Yeah, I sound just like him whenever I'm singing in my car. I really do.
So if you had to get rid of one for the rest of your life, would you rather get rid of Metallica or Van Morrison?
Well, it'd have to be Metallica because Donna doesn't listen to Metallica.
Okay, good choice.
Yeah, it would be Metallica. But I'm so glad I don't have to make that choice. I really am. Okay, so listen, there's so many. I was driving to
enough introspection.
Yes, my head is.
I don't like the spotlight.
I don't like this. I don't like thinking about me. On my way to record the podcast. On my way to record the podcast today, I've got it top down. What, it's 75 degrees right now. Mm-hmm. It's I don't know what time it is. 9 o'clock. Florida, Pensacola. It's warm. My top's down, man. Mm-hmm. My top is all not this top. The car in my
brain always goes there whenever anyone says that about their car. Like my top's down. I'm like
the soft top on my car is down.
Juvenile laugh. It's like if someone says duty.
I know. Yeah. The immature guy in us, all of us. He said duty.
He said top down. He's driving with his top down.
I'm so glad it's not just me. So the soft top on my Camaro is down. Always is down, unless it's 50 or unless it's below 50, or raining, or 100, whatever. So it's down, and I'm driving to work. And I'm thinking, what am I going to talk about on the podcast today? I wanted to talk about Katie Hicks. Mm-hmm. She represents USCCA. She came to our class last night.
What does USCCA stand for?
United Sisters A.
Okay. CC is like concealed carry, right? It's an insurance company for concealed
United
carry.
States Concealed Carry
Association.
Association.
All right.
Yep, that's it. It's one of those things you just keep, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
you forget what the word, you just say the acronyms or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I am a member. Are you a member? You're a member. So it's an insurance for people who carry a weapon for self-defense. And what I like about it is there's just so much resources, so many resources online. Katie is a dynamic young woman who came last night to our class, and she did a wonderful presentation, probably did about not even a third of what she wanted to do.
Right.
Not even a third.
Well, yeah, she said, it's like, this is kind of a 4-hour course.
Yep.
And she had about a little bit more than 30 minutes.
And she clearly said at the beginning, we'll have time for questions at the end.
Yeah.
But we forgot that. Evidently, we forgot that part.
Well, you and I and a friend of mine, we stayed after and asked her a bunch of
Yes,
questions.
we sure did.
So
we sure
technically,
did.
she was right. She just
Yeah. There was just, and she handled
have
it
time
well.
for questions from a couple of you.
Yeah. That's right. How many? She told us how many presentations has she done? She said like 400 or something like that.
Yeah.
She's used to being in a room full of testosterone-filled guys and commanding their attention.
Yeah.
And she did a good job, a great job.
Very knowledgeable.
Very knowledgeable, articulate. She's just got it going on. We hope to have her on the podcast, and we hope to have her come back to the class and continue that class. So I was going to talk about that, but something happened on the way to work. So what I've learned about having a convertible is that people feel like they can approach you
Right.
more than they can if you don't have a convertible. I don't like that about having a convertible. I don't like that at all about having a convertible. So I'm at a stoplight, one of the busiest intersections in Pensacola, and I know, because I'm aware of my environment, that there's a guy standing about 20 feet before the stoplight talking on the phone in a very dynamic way. And I notice this as I'm driving up. So I'm not going to sit here and look at him like this. So I've got him out of the corner of my eye. I've got my head turned a little bit to the right, not looking at him. And he's having his conversation. His back is towards me. And he turns around and he says something louder than what he has been saying on the phone. And I thought, he's probably talking to me, but I'm going to wait a minute. And then he says it again. And I look over at him, and he's looking straight at me. He says, hey. He starts walking to me. Now, he had to pass a lane of cars to get to me. And this is what I want people to hear, the de-escalation or a potential problem that you can possibly stop. He started walking to me, not aggressively, but without hesitation, right? Still talking on the phone. Gets off the curb, takes 2 steps. I said, don't come any closer to me. Loud enough to where if somebody else had a convertible or their window was down, they could hear me. And I put my hand out like this. Don't come any closer to me. Turned around, walked back, didn't say a word. Went, well, that was good.
Yeah.
That worked really well.
Right.
I'm sure he was just asking for a ride. Fat chance on that, by the way. Who in the world, this day and age,
You're
is
not
going
supposed to pick up hitchhikers.
I mean, what in the world, you know? Anyway, so now that's talking rationally, right? But this person probably, who knows? I have no idea. And I'm not going to find out what his story is.
Right.
To be honest with you, I don't care what his story is right now. You know, I hope he's saved. I hope all that. But it's not my job right now to help you.
Right.
It's my job to keep you the heck away from my car.
Yeah.
And
as many accounts as we get exposed to of people where that situation goes awry.
Yeah,
and someone
right.
loses their life. That's always kind of in the back of my mind too. I love not having a convertible.
Yeah.
For that reason. And tinted windows.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because especially around here, there's someone on every street.
There really is. There is. If they're not screaming out the gospel, they're,
quote unquote.
Yeah, they're asking for something.
Yeah.
That's true. Almost every corner. I
Yeah.
mean, corners that they weren't even at before.
Yeah.
By the way, it's illegal to do that. I mean, I don't know how anyway.
That's it's a big thing here.
Yeah,
locally.
yeah. So the lesson there is that, let me say this.
And this isn't for lack of compassion either.
No,
this is
it's not.
Because of the society in which we live,
That's exactly right.
there's a present danger that happens with these types of encounters often. And so it's kind of like playing the odds. Is it
Yep.
is it a matter of compassion or a matter of safety?
And I chose safety right then.
Yeah,
I
you have to.
I have to choose safety. We're not living the Garden of Eden. Josh and I, especially me, because I do the gun part of Guns in God, our gun club. I actively look for situations, videos that show situations like this. And there's, like you were saying, there's a lot that start out exactly what happened to me this morning. A stranger approached somebody in a car, or a stranger did something, whatever. It started out with somebody asking for money, whatever, and then it turned into whether it's the person that the guy is asking gets upset, pulls out his gun and shoots him because he's pissed off, or the other guy robs him.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, you don't need to get close to me. My lesson is this. That's the first thing that you can do. That was the first thing that I can do. Not for a second, Josh, did I think about pulling out my firearm. Not for a second. It wasn't necessary. It was totally unnecessary. I could have probably. He didn't have a weapon in
the
his
situation worse anyway.
Absolutely. He had his one hand was walking around, was waving back and forth like this, and his other hand was on the phone. I saw both of his hands. All this stuff is happening. When you start doing this stuff by habit, you don't even know you're doing it.
Right.
He wasn't an immediate threat of life or property at that point. It would have been totally premature to pull out my firearm and say, "Get away from my car." And I would have done it just like that too. Get away from my car.
Sideways.
That's right. It would have been totally premature. I could have taken him physically before I did something like that.
Yeah.
So don't come any closer to me. To me, I've done that before in the parking lot of Marcus Point Baptist Church whenever I was leaving work late.
Yeah, pastor's coming up to you.
That's right. He is dangerous, man. You got
Don't come any closer.
No, this guy was not the pastor. This guy had a hoodie on and both of his hands in his pockets. And he was at the front of my car before I knew it.
Textbook sketchy.
What's that?
Textbook sketchy.
Man, oh man, was he? When I saw him the last second before I saw him there, he was walking on W Street. He was probably about 50 yards from me. Opened my trunk. Next thing I knew, closed my trunk. He's standing at the front of my car. By the way, whenever I first saw him, he was walking. He did not have a hoodie on, did not have his hands in his pocket. Comes to the front of my car, hands pocket, hoodie, walking towards me. I did the same thing. Don't come any closer to me. He just turned around and walked off. Wow, that's awesome. That's a weapon, I guess. I don't know. But think about it.
Force.
What did that guy want? Why did he put his hoodie up? Why did he put his hands in his pocket? I'll never know.
Yeah.
But that's something that at least we can do, to prevent the escalation, to de-escalate. Katie was talking about de-escalation last night.
Yeah.
When I think of de-escalation, I think of you don't really want to do this. You know what I mean? After it's already a dire situation. But I think that's de-escalation too.
Right.
Perhaps just preventing anything else from going any farther. So are you guys telling me that stuff never happens to y'all?
Yes.
You're saying it never happens to you?
No. I'm saying it does happen.
Okay. I just bring it up to the gun club.
Not the convertible part. Because,
Yeah.
I have an enclosed vehicle with tinted windows.
Right,
but,
right.
I've been in situations where people have come up to me at a gas station or in a parking lot or
Mm-hmm.
in a grocery store, and I like my usual tactic is I see them coming,
Mm-hmm.
and I just kind of preempt I don't have any money on me,
Mm-hmm.
I'm good, that kind of stuff, or I'll just rush to my car and get in and
Okay.
leave or something like that.
Okay.
But similar idea, I would rather de-escalate and get away rather than give any chance for engagement.
Right. Any engagement meaning I'm not going to give you money. Any type of more engagement. If you're asking for money, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm a sinner. I don't know about y'all. Well, I do. I do know about y'all. I'm a sinner. And I'm saying this is not the right thing to do. I'm saying this as don't do this. I guess I was probably listening to Metallica and I was in a very aggressive mood at this moment. That was a joke. And a guy came up to me said, "You got any money?" That's exactly how he said it. And something about that sparked me. I said, "Yeah." Says, "Can I have some?" "No."
You were aggressive because of Metallica.
I think I was aggressive because he
Yeah.
had this what is the word? He had this sense that I owed him something. "You got any money?" It was like that.
Yeah.
It was not like, sir, can I ask you a question? "You got any money?" You know, like, okay, you got to give me. If you got some, you got to give it to me. I just
Right.
felt like I needed to put him in his place. That's not the right thing to do because that could have escalated. That was not
Yeah.
a de-escalation. That was an escalation.
Yeah,
You know?
I was leaving a parking lot, getting out on the road. This was in sort of it was like the Fairfield area, kind of bad area of town. But I'm looking one direction because of oncoming traffic, and all of a sudden I hear a tap at my
Oh,
window.
no.
And I'm
Oh,
like-
my gosh.
I'm ready to get into traffic, and I look over, and this person is tapping on my window, doing the same thing, asking for money or whatever. And I'm like, it totally caught me off
I
guard.
bet
Like
it
I was
did.
just kind of
Scared
speechless.
you.
I'm just like,
Oh, my gosh.
I just, the traffic opened up. I just hit the gas, and as I'm leaving, I'm just getting yelled at. Like, how dare you?
Oh, my gosh.
Like, and I'm like, it was such a weird. I mean, the whole thing probably happened in over a period of 5 seconds.
Right.
But I was just like totally caught off guard and speechless. I was not even expecting someone to come up to a vehicle that's running, that's driving, that's about to head out into traffic. Like,
Right.
hey, with people behind him.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
Tap, tap, tap. Hey, do you have any money?
Right.
Like, even if I did, like, we're gonna get in trouble if
Yeah.
I hold up this whole line of traffic behind me. But yeah, it is weird, like how quickly those types of
Man, it
situations
can-
happen.
Right. And most people are not looking. They're not being. Most people are not as aware of their environment as we are because we teach that kind of a thing. You know, and so if we're aware or trying to be aware, and it sneaks up on us, for sure it sneaks up on on other people. I think about that a lot. Whenever I think if somebody's been out for a long time, meaning they've been without an address for a long time, they forget about what it's like to be in a car, to drive a car, to be responsible to do those things, and they get kind of tunnel vision. You do strange things when you're hungry and tired and wet and thirsty and everything else. You just see an opportunity and you try to do it. And I have sensitivity for those people, but I can't. I'm not equipped to help them whenever I'm trying to operate a vehicle.
Yeah.
I'm just not. I'm not willing to. I've already made that decision. I'm not giving money to a stranger unless I'm really called to do that. I gave somebody something the other day because it just felt like, I don't know, it felt like it was a really safe type of environment. I felt the person was safe. They didn't even approach me. Nobody, you know what I mean? I felt like I was in more control of that situation.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that makes it right or wrong. I don't know. But anyway, most of the time I've already made up my mind. But anyway,
Yeah.
that's my life, and I'm sticking to it, Joshy.
Okay.
All right, and and we'll have Katie on here hopefully next month or something like that.
Right.
And see if she can talk to us about the biblical part of self-defense. I think she was talking about last night, or guarding or taking your house. Is that what she was talking about?
Oh yeah. In defense of property.
In defense of property.
Yeah.
Right.
And castle doctrine, that kind of stuff.
That's right. That's right. She did a great job of articulating that.
Right.
The don't take your gun out unless you're going to shoot somebody is so easily interpreted as
That requires a lot of context.
it
Don't
does.
take your gun out unless you're going to shoot somebody.
My point is most people hear it
Yeah.
exactly like that. Oh, okay. Well, it's out.
Yeah.
I got to take care of it. She articulated it so well last night. Can you Can you remember what she said? It was so good.
Like,
Obviously, it wasn't memorable. But
if you're in a situation where you have to use deadly force, she said, don't take your firearm out until you've already made the decision that the trigger has to be full.
There you go. If you've already made that decision, mentally, everything.
To contrast that with how it's usually thought of is be prepared to pull the trigger if you pull out your firearm. And
there you go.
Yeah, and the way she articulated, I think, was a much better way of thinking about it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
In other words, it is a total last resort. And she also delineated between thinking legally and thinking tactfully.
Yeah.
Tactically, not tactfully.
Tactfully.
Tactfully. Legally and
Sir.
tactically. Tactically is quite different.
Yeah.
Tactically is surviving at any cost.
Right.
Being prepared to survive at any cost, regardless, but before really knowing the environment, you are prepared to take a life. That's my interpretation of what she was talking about. Thinking legally is what she advocates for, and what we advocate for is the gun is not even seen until you have went through all the processes and you feel like you are in immediate danger and you need to use it.
Remember when we first started this podcast like 4 years ago?
I do.
It was like totally just a gun club podcast.
Yep.
We did it because like everyone was quarantined and we weren't having groups and stuff. And we used to have these discussions all the time.
Yeah.
When it was the gun club podcast.
Yeah, that's right.
Harkening back to old times.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And if she agrees to come on, we'll be leaning on that a little bit more. We'll go and deep dive into that.
Right. But I think it's cool though because oftentimes this topic isn't approached from a Christian perspective.
Yeah.
It might be nominally, but there's a lot of scriptural ideas behind self-defense, defense of life, defense of property, defense of other people's lives, things like that. And it's something that we often discuss in the gun club. Is not just the technicalities of what you do when, but also the philosophy behind it and where we get these ideas scripturally, how these ideas have been applied in government, all that kind of stuff. And it's a lot of fun to have those discussions. Yeah,
it is. It is. And having an open mind about it and having seeing other people's point of views. I think their past sometimes reflects how they would react in a situation.
Oh yeah, we all do. Yeah.
Did you go to sunrise service?
I watched it online.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I went last year and I was considering it, and I remember last year battling all the traffic before dawn getting there, and then battling the parking lot before dawn getting there, and battling the crowds getting there. And then I decided once you leave, you do all that in reverse. And so I'm like, I think this year I'm gonna do the watch online thing.
Okay.
And so that's what I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
You watched it live online?
No, I watched it a few hours afterwards.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I watched part of the morning service afterwards, and then I watched I think I watched the Easter service on Monday when they did the re-uploading of it. Yeah.
Right. It was nice. I think we got close to 5,000. I haven't heard any numbers, but I'm sorry, I was back here. It was nice. I think we got close to 5,000, which is always, I don't know that we've broken that yet. But this year probably was the biggest group just by looking at how much of the Wahoo Stadium was taken up. So it goes Wahoo Stadium goes like this.
Yeah.
And people were packed in from the inside almost all the way out to the very end.
Right.
Very close. It looked to me to be closer than any other time.
Okay.
So it was a nice service. The weather was good. A little bit humid, so it wasn't cold at all. I had a little episode while I was taking photos. A Meniere's episode. That was a lot of fun, Josh.
I'll bet.
Having a little dizzy, nauseated, cold sweats in front of 5,000 people. It was right on. That's what everybody wants for their Easter.
Oh, yeah.
That's fantastic. I was taking pictures of the
photographer lying motionless on the field.
That guy's really praising God. Look at him. He's flat on the ground. I was taking pictures of the interpreter. The interpreter's on top of the interpreter for the deaf is on top of one of the dugouts. So I know from past experience that I can get some really good shots here with the background, some type of sky in the background, or whatever the sky is like. I can get just her in the background. And so funny, a couple of years, I got an interpreter doing something that looked like she was giving somebody the finger. And I showed her that at the 10 o'clock service, and she said she loved it. She said, that is so funny. It really just looked like she was giving someone. And other times it looks like somebody's giving a gang signal, you know. So, so I'm halfway trying to get a good picture and halfway trying to get a comical picture of them while they're doing it. As the ones that really get into it are also talking while they're doing it.
Yeah.
And they have all these looks on their faces. It's a gold mine for a photographer.
Right. Yeah, no doubt.
Anyway, so I found myself in a strange position. I got up. Is it still on? I got up. I got up on front of just coming out of the dugout, and I had to turn around like this and lean over a little bit because there was a post right there, and then I went up like this. I should have known. This is 1, this is 2, this is 3, and this is 4. So, and I'm looking through the lens. And I start taking pictures.
Everything was off.
And I didn't. I should have known. And I started feeling the world coming to an end. It just everything started sinking in, and I went, oh no, that's all it takes. So I sat down, I put my hand on the railing, and I sat there for
Which
however
is
long.
a perfectly fine posture to take at that service. Cause
people thought I was praying. No doubt. If they looked close, they could have seen sweat because they probably thought it was tears.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
It was so funny if some of my friends came up behind me and put their hands on me. We're praying. We're with you, buddy. Whatever we can do for you. You can give me my meclizine for one. So I'm sitting there really.
That would have been a good picture too.
Yeah. I'm
someone deep in intense prayer during the Easter service. Just a guy about to pass out.
It's funny now, but listen, it was not at the time. It wasn't a full blown, which means I didn't have to lay flat, and it was about a 7 out of 10. It was enough to where I couldn't stand up and walk, and it was enough where I had a hangover. I'd call it my hangover. You have an episode like that, and your brain and little slurred speech afterwards, all this fun stuff. So after it went away, I stood up, walked to my camera, put my camera up, and I went to the house, man. I am no good after something. I was probably 1,500 feet from my camera bag. I was saying, how? And I had to walk in front of God and everybody. I had to walk in front of probably about 2,500 people because I was on one side. I walked all the way across, got my camera, please don't come back. I was praying, please don't come back, please don't come back. And it didn't. I walked home.
Yeah.
I didn't get my car because that'd be inappropriate if I drove home after something like that. But I got my car and walked home. That was my experience, man. That's it, Josh. I got no more.
Okay. It's always funny. Like while you're talking and wrapping up, I'm always thinking about how to segue into the Bible part, and sometimes I got nothing.
Yeah.
You know, for segue, and I notice like there are some podcasts I listen to where they'll be talking and they just kind of like wrap up that idea. And there is no segue. There's just like a sound effect or something.
I think that's
like,
fine too.
But
I think that's, yep.
And that sound effect comes from I think there's an old PBS show. Do you know where that comes from, Chris? Where they would not 3, 2, 1 Contact, maybe Reading Rainbow. Yeah, Reading Rainbow,
gosh.
where they would talk about one book, and then they would just be done with it, and then they'd go on to the next book, and the only segue was ba-dum-bum.
But everybody knew that was a segue.
Yeah, everyone
right?
knew that was a segue. We need to
Perfectly
develop something like that.
Perfectly valid segue. I did my best to give you as many topics as I could to segue, but I didn't.
Well,
did
part of
not
it
succeed.
is part of it is because I wasn't. There's a couple different options in my head about what to talk about today, and I hadn't really settled on any of them. So there was that aspect of it too. But I think what I want to talk about today, it has to do with what happens after Easter, which we talked about a little bit in the hook, and going up to Easter, in our last episode, we talked about that Passover feast and how Jesus was celebrating the Passover with his disciples, the night before he was crucified.
Right.
And we often call that the Last Supper. Sorry, I keep leaning away from the mic. That's a bad habit I have.
You and me both.
So I apologize for the sound, but yeah. So he was celebrating the Passover with his disciples, and we talked about the significance of that and what that meant. The level of significance of those different feasts. The Passover is just one of 7 memorial feasts that Israel would keep throughout its year. Immediately after the Passover was the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and it lasted for 7 days. And then after that, you have the Feast of First Fruits, then Pentecost, which I think is called Shavuot, Feast of Trumpets, Yom Kippur, and Feast of Tabernacles. So, and these all happen at very specific times in the Jewish calendar. And so, looking at the Passover and realizing what it signified with respect to Christ's death and burial and all that kind of stuff, it's interesting to see the pattern of the rest of the feasts and what they mean in Christ's life, because oftentimes the Feast of First Fruits is related to Christ's resurrection. And on the calendar right now, we're in between the Passover and what is, I think the Greek version of it was Pentecost, but it's like 50 days, 50 days after the resurrection. And that's what gets us to that account in Scripture where the disciples are proclaiming the gospel and everyone hears it in their own language and the Holy Spirit descends and all that kind of stuff. And that's a New Testament event that corresponded with this feast that was given in the Old Testament. Specifically, Leviticus 23 sort of lists all these out. But in Gun Club, the past several months, we've been going through the book of Revelation. And what's really interesting about Revelation is that pattern seems to emerge in the structure of Revelation too, because after the first couple chapters where Jesus is giving those specific messages to the 7 churches, Sardis, Smyrna, Ephesus, all those, our attention is turned, and John, he says that heaven was opened and he was looking directly into the throne room of God in heaven. And he starts describing it, and it's very temple-like in its vocabulary. We see that the throne element, we see the angels around the throne, we see the 24 elders around the throne, which is like the 24 courses of priests in the temple. We see the all these different elements that remind us over and over again that the Garden of Eden, the tabernacle, the temple, all of these were models of the actual throne of God in heaven. And Hebrews even alludes to this, that Jesus is our high priest who goes into the holy place in the temple made without hands, and he intercedes for us before the throne of God. And and we see that in Revelation as well. But every time we get a glimpse of the actual throne of God in heaven, a detail or two will be added to it that wasn't there previously. And what we see in Revelation is when John looks into the throne room of God, he doesn't just see the throne. He doesn't just see the the angels around the throne and all this other stuff. But he says he introduces a new element. There's a lamb that was slain, and it's disclosed later in that passage that this is Christ that we're talking about. But what's really interesting is that lamb that was slain, a lot of people relate that to like the atonement sacrifice. Mm-hmm. The atonement sacrifice was entirely different. It was the two goats where one is sacrificed and one is the sins are applied to the other one and the other one's set free, right. And like driven off into the wilderness.
Scapegoat. Yeah,
the scapegoat, the Azazel, and but what we see in Revelation is that Passover lamb being presented again, the lamb that was slain, just like in the original Passover feast, there was a lamb that was slain and it was consumed, and there was the blood that was put on the doorpost, and that's how Israel escaped the judgment that went over all of Egypt and Israel. Yeah. If there wasn't that lamb in the in that house where the blood was put on the doorpost, mm-hmm. then the judgment of the firstborn son being killed would have been on that house. Mm-hmm. And you see that going through all that 10th plague going through all of Egypt. It affected the Pharaoh, it affected the Egyptians, it affected presumably anyone, even an Israelite who didn't follow that direction of putting the blood on the doorpost and doing the Passover thing. And so God instructed Israel, like, this is something you're always going to do on the 14th day of the first month of the Jewish calendar forever. No stopping it. It's always going to be done. And so in Revelation, when we see that Passover lamb being presented, the structure is interesting. And this is something I want to sort of explore more in the future, because I'm still kind of researching this. Mm-hmm. But it seems like these 7 feasts that Israel was commanded to keep throughout its generations sort of follows the structure of the book of Revelation. I'll give you an example. So, the first feast is the Passover. The second one is a 7-day feast of unleavened bread, which is followed by the feast of first fruits. Well, in the beginning chapters, or those chapters of Revelation were first introduced to the Passover lamb, and then there's 7 judgments, and then there's a space of silence after, at the end of them. And so it kind of follows the same structure where you have the Passover, a period of 7 for the feast of unleavened bread, where sin is purged. Mm-hmm. Leaven is purged from the house. In Revelation, sin is being purged, on the earth. And then you have that conclusion of the 7th seal there, which would correspond presumably to that feast of first fruits. So that's kind of where I am in some of the stuff I'm studying, and I want to explore that in the future.
Okay, sounds good.
But yeah, that's kind of what I got today.
Okay,
sort of like a teaser, and more to come.
All right, sounds good. We're going into the summer season.
Yes,
we may cut off somewhere and start a new chapter or whatever, like to organize the podcast and YouTube, season 1, 2, whatever. But we are transitioning now in season, so we'll probably be transitioning too.
Yep.
But we'll still be the deep dives.
Yep.
Somewhere around. Maybe we'll change it to the deep dive, I think is what Craig wanted to call it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of deep dives podcast and deep dives YouTube. There's a lot of those. So maybe we'll change it to something that's more
deepest dive.
Something. Deep dive is a generic term. But anyway, thanks, Josh. Go do some engineering stuff.
Okay.
Thanks, Chris. Chris fed us this morning. We like to thank our sponsor,
Yep.
Chris and J-Dell, for feeding us this morning. We appreciate that very much, both of y'all. And we love you. We'll see y'all later. Bye.